super excited to share another purpose journey and story with you today. So excited to introduce our special guest, Lana, today, and we're going to hear her journey along with you. So, without any further ado, Lana, where are you from?
I live in Chicago, downtown Chicago, actually. So I'm a city girl now, but I grew up in Indiana, which isn't actually too far from Chicago where I grew up. But yep, I've been living in the Chicagoland area since 2001.
Beautiful. So, welcome and thank you for joining us. And I want to ask you to take us back to the moment when you had that first aha moment, or even a series of aha moments, even if you didn't realize it then, but what got you started on your purpose journey and what has led you up to today. So, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about this because where my purpose needed some reevaluation is a place where a lot of women don't talk about. So I was diagnosed at age 35 with unexplained infertility. And I didn't know at that point that I would not ever be able to become a biological mom. 7 years of fertility treatments and was very hopeful that one would be the right timing, the cycle would work, I would have my rainbow baby. But unfortunately, after 7 years of trying, it got to a point, I was in my early 40s, and I was advised by my reproductive endocrinologist that we've kind of exhausted all the options of becoming biological parents. And it really made me wonder what my purpose would be, because I always thought that my purpose would be to be a mom and to raise little humans and, create awesome new people to add to the greatness in this world. And when that wasn't available to me, I really felt lost, and I didn't know what could have the magnitude of purpose besides motherhood. And it was a really isolating journey, because as a woman, I don't know that we've ever allowed ourselves to think that something could have as much meaning and purpose as being a mom. So there was a couple years with, I would say, a lot of disconnection from myself and a lot of feeling like I didn't really fit in, because I was used to being a very high functioning person. I was successful in the workplace. I was very goal oriented. I knew how to achieve goals, but when I felt like I didn't know what I was striving for, I just felt like there wasn't much that I was good at. And then feeling a lot of judgment about my body, and just not really knowing where I fit in the world if I couldn't become a mom. So it came to the point where I started working with a life coach. I didn't know what a life coach was. I didn't know how they could impact your life. But fortunately for me, I was able to connect with somebody that helped me to start to rediscover what my life could be if motherhood wasn't the answer. And that's when I started to understand what purpose was for me. And I have a very unique perspective on purpose. I I don't believe that purpose is identified as one unique thing to us. I have come to find that purpose is really much more about being comfortable with who you are, approaching your life with a loving sense of self for yourself, and then the way that you present yourself in other people's lives. We have multiple purposes, so it became so much of a relief to me to realize that I didn't have to strive for this one title or this one role in my life to feel as though that I had purpose. And I just try to really show up as somebody who feels very proud of who she is, somebody who's a contributor to society by doing the things that I love to do, and really focusing on how wonderful life can be. And then I realized that I show up in many different ways depending on the people that I am in contact with. And there's just this whole different way of looking at purpose for me, because I think, about, say, my second grade teacher who I learned arithmetic from. She was probably a mom to somebody and served a great purpose as a mom to somebody, but her purpose wasn't to be my mom. It was to teach me foundational skills. And that was sort of when the light bulb went off. And I think about all these different people who've been so impactful and created such purpose in my life that they probably didn't identify that as their purpose. And the like alarm bells went off of, oh my gosh, I could be purposeful to so many people in so many different ways. So that's the way that I view purpose as a woman who's childless after infertility.
That is beautiful. And thank you for sharing that, and being vulnerable to share that story with others who are going to be going through the same things and, feel stuck. So thank you for sharing that. I would ask you, so first of all, I really love how what you found in your purpose is impacting others. And it's a variety of things. Like purpose is in multi layers, and also it does take a village to raise one child. So, there's all different kinds of people that can affect that one person, like you were saying, your teacher. So are you inspired now to work with children, or are you inspired to work with women? What does it look like now? What does Lana do?
Well, I became a certified life coach, and I work with women who are childless after an infertility diagnosis and are unable to become moms. So similar to me, because there are so few resources available to women like that. And so for me, it's being able to help women create their path beyond motherhood and feel very proud of who they are, even though this thing that we thought was just going to be available to us is not available. So that's really what I do. As far as the work that I do, I got an advanced certification in grief and post-traumatic growth because I think it's very traumatic, and it's very much a grieving experience to not be able to have something that as a biological female you thought you'd be able to create. So there's a lot of women who are grieving their inability to become moms, but because we haven't physically lost a human, we just lost this dream or this idea of who we thought we were going to be. There's a grieving process, but it's really disenfranchised grief because a lot of people are like, oh, well, you can always adopt, or oh, you can have my kids, like kids, people downplay the grief that women really go through. So that's really where I try to help to create this awareness beyond just the life that I've created for myself and the lives that I hopefully will touch. I want other women to be able to do the same thing as they find their purpose, being uniquely happy with being a woman who's childless after infertility.
Yeah, that's so, thank you. So what are some of the gifts that you bring to help inspire these women? Because you have your story, you have your experiences. What are some of your gifts?
Well, I think my gift is not identifying yourself as something that society has always seen as your purpose, right? Goes back to purpose. Because I know I was raised in a family with strong women who were goal achieving women, but they loved being moms. And there was never a conversation of what life could be like if you're not a mom. So being
Mhm.
able to feel comfortable that you're still a valuable contributor to society, even if your life looks different than you thought it was going to be, is something that I think so many of us need, whether it's you thought you'd be married by now, you didn't think you'd be divorced at this point in your life. There's so many things that happen in our lives that we didn't think life would end up this way, and it does. And a lot of women aren't given the tools to still love their life even if it's different than they thought. So for me, that's probably the thing that I focus on the most, is just being able to feel proud of yourself and feel as though you have, value and meaning in your life, because you're able to now reevaluate, like, okay, if I can't have this thing that I really wanted, what can I do with my life and feel very proud of myself and feel as though I have a place in this world.
Yeah, to continue on with your purpose, because we don't know what our purpose is. We've got to discover it, and it does have. I've listened to some interesting stories where someone felt like their purpose was one thing, and then it shifted so many times in their life. So yeah, there's the society that, you know, creates this, motherhood as a purpose. And then there's so many other ways that we can fulfill our purpose that, just starting that conversation is really beautiful, to give that purpose back to the women who are in grieving that and just acknowledging that. So what would you say to someone who is not aware quite of the grieving process, but they may be grieving already in, not being able to have children?
Well, I think it's important not to judge yourself. I think that we've unfortunately are our hardest critics. And so there's a lot of times where you're needing compassion for yourself, but instead you go to that automatic like judgment that you're not worthy of your womanhood, or you're not somebody who's valued in your community because of this inability to have children. So I think it's really important just to show compassion to yourself and realize that grief, many of us, this is something that I learned in my advanced certification. We know that like 5 stages of grief. We've always heard like, oh, there's 5 stages of grief, which indicates that when you get to stage 5, it's over and you'll never feel grief again. And what I've come to learn and help, the students that I work with is realize that there may be days 20 years from now that you have moments of grief because you wanted to be a mom, or you see an interaction of a mother and child and know that that's not something that you'll ever be able to have. And being able to appreciate that there are moments that you can't have, and you're not still like you're not reverting back to day one of this heartache and this journey, but just acknowledging that it's okay to sometimes feel sad, and you're not doing grief wrong, that there's no end point where it just miraculously disappears and you're healed forever.
Yeah, just like, I mean, just with any trauma, I mean, that's a trauma, it's grief, we don't just forget about those things, but we can move on and still create beautiful things in our life and create our purpose and find our new purpose. So, yeah, so beautiful. Well, I just want to celebrate what you're doing because it's a huge need in this world, having women, feeling like they're not enough because they're not able to do something that many other women are. Just having that self-worth given back to them is such a beautiful gift, and I just want to celebrate that.
Thank you. It took a long time to get to a point where I felt comfortable talking about it, because it felt very shameful.
Uh,
Even though I didn't do anything wrong, it was a very hard thing to openly talk about. So I really just hope that your listeners hear this conversation, and if they know someone who can't have children, or if they're struggling themselves, just being able to understand what it might be like to work through the challenges that come with this.
yes, definitely. So what are some of the future goals for your helping women? What are some of your future purpose goals for this gifts that you're working on?
Well, I founded something back in 2022 called the Others Day Brunch. And it takes place the day before Mother's Day. And it's a place
Oh,
not only for women without children, but maybe if you've lost your mom, or you have an estranged relationship with a mom or a mother figure. In-person brunch in Chicago. People have come from all over the US, Puerto Rico. I've, amazed by the amount of women who are called by that. So one of the things that I'm really hoping to do with that is expand it to be like a whole weekend of women coming together and celebrating anything that might feel as though they're disconnected from, like learning how to come and feel connected to themselves again. So the Others Day Brunch turning into a weekend event is definitely something that is high on my radar. I also have a mastermind that I help women who are childless after infertility. It's called Thrive After Infertility. So
mhm.
seeing that grow into something where more women can come and feel as though they're worthy of the work that goes around, like creating a life that you love, even though the children you dreamed of aren't possible.
That is so beautiful. I love both of those, the community and also the weekend. I mean, there are so many women, I even met a woman that she was a stepmother for a long time, and then all of a sudden she was no longer a part of that family and she wasn't their real mom. So she had that disconnect and felt that loss very real
Yeah.
and wasn't given, by society, she wasn't given the amount of support that she needed in that grief. So I really, yeah, really admire what you're doing and
Yeah.
really
Yeah,
excited.
the Other's Day brunch, it's nice because it's not like come and let's be sad together. It's like let's come
Mhm.
and like celebrate and have conversations that don't have to involve like how many kids do you have, or how did your mom pass away, or is your mom alive? It's just people that come in the room know that I give people options for other comments and questions they can ask each other, because sometimes we just automatically go to these questions that might be triggering. So the Others Day brunch is an opportunity to come in and feel celebrated and not feel as though you have to be sorrowful in a day leading up to Mother's Day.
That's beautiful. I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Lana. And I'm really excited to share this story because I know it will definitely impact and inspire others to connect with you and to start their own journey to find their purpose through infertility. So
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.